Thanks for joining us today for this discussion on building an e-commerce business. As we begin, I ask that everyone keep their mics off for the event and submit any questions that they have through the chat. There's a live captioning feature available within the Zoom features, and you can find it in the settings option near the bottom of the screen. I'd also like to remind you that this is being recorded and will be available in our archive a few days after the event. This event hopes to provide you with some personal advice so that you can leave with a better understanding on how to build an e-commerce business. Starting a business can feel overwhelming and stressful, and it's difficult to know exactly where to begin and how to approach your ideas. With the rise of online shopping and digital purchasing platforms, and especially with the pandemic keeping us at home, opening an online store makes more sense now than ever. E-commerce refers to businesses that sell goods, services, and funds through the internet, and the option offers more affordability and flexibility than running a brick and mortar store. With that said, I'm happy to introduce our guest for this afternoon. Leading this conversation is Jake Willis, a 2020 graduate, and he'll be going through this topic with Ashley Cummings, founder of Natural Ash, a skincare brand that focuses on clean and minimal body care routines, and Henry Palmer, founder of Lochtree, a marketplace for sustainable and eco-friendly products. Again, please answer any questions in the chat. And now, Jake, I'll pass the floor over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bernice. Don't know if I could do a better job of that intro. So thank you so much. That was a great start. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. It's an absolute pleasure to be leading what is sure to be a really exciting conversation. As said, we have Ashley Cummings with us of Natural Ash and Henry Palmer of Lochtree. So before we go into any more depth about the specifics of e-commerce and that whole world, I would love to hear from the two of them about their businesses in their own words and how they came up with the idea. And also, as stated earlier, if you have any questions at any time, we'll be getting to them later in the conversation. So if you have a question you'd like to ask either of our two guests, you can go ahead and post it into the chat. So let's begin first with Ashley. So what, in your own words, is Natural Ash and where did the idea come from?
So I just want to say hi to everybody and thank you for joining us today. Natural Ash, well, the name itself actually came from my name. My name is Ashley. And I was actually talking to my cousin Jessica when I had the idea of the company, and she said, just call it Natural Ash. So the reason why it's called Natural Ash is because of the products. So I create body butters and lip balms. Everything is using natural body butters and oils. There's no chemicals, there's no preservatives, there's no water, so therefore you don't need any preservatives. And it basically came about because of my career as a nurse.
Excellent. And then Henry, what about you and how Lochtree came into existence?
Yeah, great to be here, everyone. Yeah, excited to chat about all this. So Lochtree really, it was really sort of a simple idea. And it was kind of like an itch I had where I was wanting to add sort of, or work on living more sustainably myself. And I was sort of researching and looking for what options were out there and so on. And I found that it just was taking a tremendous amount of time, and there weren't a lot of great places where you could kind of go learn and purchase eco-friendly sustainable products. And I really just sort of set about solving that. And I thought, I could sort of dive in and work on bringing a platform together and creating a marketplace where, consumers could, arrive, learn about, check out, and ultimately purchase eco-friendly sustainable products. The name Lochtree is, I wish I had as appealing a story as Ashley. It's, I thought a lot about, what I would call the company and so on. And my family's Scottish. I'm from the UK originally. And I really like the idea of sort of elements around water and nature and so on. And loch is Scottish for lake. And I thought, I know what, I'm just going to create a new word and I'm just going to put words together. So it's really nothing more, brilliant than that. But I want to sort of have a bit of a callback to my family heritage and, build something new and kind of have some of those elements. That was really the genesis of the name and kind of the idea.
Excellent. Yep, both very exciting starts for and backgrounds for these companies. Now, when it comes to e-commerce, I think it appeals to a lot of entrepreneurs because on the surface, it seems like it's way easier to build and develop a website than get a brick and mortar store up and running. And you don't have to deal with rent or any of those other external costs. But of course, creating a website in itself is its own challenge. So could you each tell me a little bit about what it was like deciding to build a website, how you went about figuring out the best ways to do so, and what were some of those initial challenges with making a storefront? Because in this world of online discovery, it's very hard to just create a domain and get it out there when there's so much other competition. And e-commerce definitely has its own sets of challenges that differentiate it from brick and mortar. So Ashley, once again, if you'd like to start.
So I actually started my business before it was a business, about 3 years before I created the website. Just to give a little background, so I'm a registered nurse in oncology, and many times the patients that receive chemotherapy start to have a lot of skin issues, whether it's dry skin or eczema. They develop, different skin conditions. And a lot of the times what we give them for medications have chemicals in them, which can then cause other damages. So I just wanted to create a body butter that was natural for my patients or any patient to use, and then also anybody with skin. So that's just the background of Natural Ash and why I created it, which was basically to give myself a product that moisturized my skin, but I wouldn't have to worry about any parabens or other preservatives that would be inside the product. So once I, went home, I started sourcing materials and I started creating the butter and I started making it. And I was actually just, giving it to friends and family to try. So this was before, a website even came to my mind. And then, for a few years I was doing that. I was selling it like in-person sales. And then I decided to take it a step further and start a website. I figured that was the easiest way to just start selling it to other people and getting the name out there versus the traditional, brick and mortar store. So definitely had challenges because I've never created a website before. And, I'm okay with technology, but it was definitely challenging. So for me, I just had to find a platform that was easy to use where I could create something and then also had a great, help desk. So that's how I landed on Squarespace. And that's what I use for my platform. So I think challenges are just keeping the website up to date, keeping it fresh, keeping it new, and to try to give someone the experience as they would have in a store. And that's my main goal with my website right now.
Awesome. And Henry?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting you point out obviously the unique advantages and challenges between e-commerce and brick and mortar. I think one of the interesting pieces for me is sort of timeline of when you start, because you can kind of start building, and a website, and you can sort of take your time with it and sort of build it over time. Whereas, that's certainly very different with brick and mortar. You're either open or you're not open. And I had sort of been chewing on the idea for Lochtree, and I did have a bit of background from previous work I'd done with websites and kind of working on layouts and customer journey and all that. So I knew enough to sort of get myself in trouble in a way. I thought, well, I can do this. And I just kind of started, and I gave myself, a couple months, and I just slowly started building it. And while I was building it, I was continuing to research products and research, the business model and define it. I'm very guilty of being someone that has like enough of a plan and then I just start. I'm not someone that has like everything fully mapped out and then start, because I know if I was, for me personally, if I was to do that, I would never get going. So I just have enough, foundational knowledge about something, and then I just get, crack on with it. And that's really how I started building the website. And so Lochtree is built on the Shopify platform, which is another, great, easy to use platform. And I took some of my background knowledge, and I also, spent a lot of time looking at other sites in different industries that I liked, or other places that I shopped online, and borrowed ideas from, oh, the way this navigation works is, that makes a lot of sense, or so on. And I started building that way. So I built my site sort of soup to nuts myself. The only thing that I went out and sought help with was working with a graphic designer to help me with colors and logos and fonts and so on, because having that tie together I think can really elevate a brand if it's somebody's first experience landing on your site and something's off, or the font's a bit peculiar or something like that. It's because you don't have that same feeling of walking into a brick and mortar store. Like that is the presentation that you have to provide. So that was something where I did go externally and worked with a designer who helped me, pick my color palette, and we talked through what I was trying to express and so on. And that was a huge help to me. And then from there, I went and plugged everything in and built the rest of it. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Very good. Now, a little over a year ago, the world was beset by, and we're still going through, the COVID-19 pandemic, and suddenly it becomes impossible to physically go into brick and mortar stores, and everyone is buying everything over their computer. And for many businesses, this required a lot of immediate adaptation. Suddenly every restaurant has to have a way for you to order food for takeout or delivery from them, and many other stores adapting to this really rapid new situation. So over the last year, and all of these new customer trends coming into the business world, how have you noticed any ways in which the pandemic has affected your business, or how people are purchasing goods through your stores, or any other trends that have come to you as a result of the pandemic?
So my Natural Ash actually was launched probably like a month before everything happened. So I mean, I planned for it to be an e-commerce like store, but I also thought I was going to be able to participate in trade shows and different shopping events, especially because it is a skincare product and people like to try skincare products in person before they make a purchase. So once, COVID happened and everything shut down, I had to solely rely on my website and then Instagram just to get the name out there. And luckily, people trusted in the brand. I had a lot of support from my community, and, word of mouth happened. And then new people tried the product, and then opportunities like this and speaking about the product, other people got to try it. So COVID definitely, I guess, threw a curveball as far as what I could do physically, but the website and Instagram actually helped a whole lot with sales and just getting the name out there. And also, I think just being a skincare brand and, not having any chemicals in the products that I make, people realize that that's a healthy choice for them when taking care of themselves. And I think the whole pandemic just opened everybody's eyes as to how important your health is and how important it is to take care of your bodies, because at the end of the day, something like a pandemic could happen, and that's when you realize it, unfortunately. So I think now people are more conscious about, making doctor's appointments and, making sure they're eating healthier foods or taking vitamins. And I think that skincare is also a part of that, because your skin is also an organ and your biggest organ within your body. So, I just try to educate that it's important and to be conscious of what you put onto your skin, because that's what goes inside of your body. And again, like, effective skincare can help with your overall mental health and well-being. And that's another, area of focus that has happened because of COVID. So I think that COVID definitely changed shopping patterns for people, but it also, opened a lot of minds to healthcare and how important it is that we take care of ourselves and our families.
Excellent.
Ashley basically just answered everything I was going to say on this, because it very, very similar trajectory. I was actually finishing my MBA at Northeastern while I was kind of working on building out Lochtree, and I wrapped everything up with my MBA around March, and I was like all excited. I was like, now we're going to really have time to push forward, and so on. And I was I too was targeting going to local events, farmers markets, pop-up shops and so on. That was a big part of my original launch strategy, was getting out there, because one of the downsides of e-commerce is you don't have that natural foot traffic that a brick and mortar store might have. If you throw up a store on Huntington Avenue, people are naturally going to come by it. Throwing up a website doesn't mean anybody's going to stop by. So that was definitely a big curveball. But I would back up a little bit. When I first started really putting Lochtree together, I think what we saw in 2020 and before COVID and end of 2019 was a real drumbeat around environmental issues. So, there was this young teenager, Greta Thunberg, who no one ever heard of before, and now all of a sudden she's sort of on the front page of everything. Simultaneously, Australia caught on fire, then Brazil caught on fire, then America caught on fire, and so there was so much emphasis being paid around environmental health in many ways. I remember seeing almost like 2 or 3 covers of The Economist in a row with environmental issues as the front page cover. So people, I think, were starting to pay more attention towards how we live our lives, sustainability, the impact of the environment, and so on. And then to me, COVID was just a continuation of this on a much larger scale, but we'd already been seeing this kind of drumbeat of how are we living, what is the impact we're having, and so on. So when the world kind of shut down with COVID, I think that in some ways, especially consumers that are interested in the sustainability space, were almost already becoming more and more conditioned towards that. For me, I took the opportunity to, okay, here's some avenues and here's some opportunities that I was looking to pursue, for example, with markets and pop-ups that went away. And I really tried to pull my arms in and say, okay, what are the few things that we can do really well? And I focused a lot on education, a lot on blogging, and providing that that information for consumers. And I think that it's there's been some seismic shifts in the history of e-commerce, and this is a big one. Where people's purchasing habits change in a massive way. If you in my opinion, to really rewind, if you go back to somewhere like 2008, with the financial crisis back then, where lots of people lost their jobs back then, there was a huge boom with e-commerce because people were like, what am I going to do? And a lot of e-commerce companies started up. And I think similarly here in 2020 and 2021, while these companies, a lot of companies were already running, people became that much more familiar with shopping online. And it's just, it really is that easy and that accessible. And I'd say, that's obviously I think that really dove deep into, for example, like the baby boomer generation. My mother has never purchased anything online. And now she's like talking to me about how she's like shopping for this or that. And she's like leaving product reviews and all this stuff. And like that never happened before, like she would, never think about that. And so I think, a silver lining in some of this has been making consumers more comfortable with shopping online. And I think one of the benefits of it is also, while you might not be able to be hands-on with a product, you can spend more time learning about a product, and you can sort of sit there. And I think and Ashley, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on it, but sort of one of the standard understandings in e-commerce is it takes a consumer usually about 7 touch points with a brand before they purchase something. And my website will oftentimes show me how many times someone has been to a site before they've converted. And it generally holds true that they rarely land and buy right then. They sort of kick the tires a little bit and they come back later, and then, they come back again and then they read a bit more. And I think so these things are evolving, but I think COVID has certainly encouraged that type of shopping that much more. That was a really long-winded way of saying I agree with everything Ashley said.
Yep. I love what you said about particularly for older generations getting them online. I mean, I certainly know um, older members of my family who just they want and they grew up with that in-store experience. That's the one they know. That's the one they're comfortable with. And there has been definitely a lot of forced adaptation in the last year, but by those people. So, and as you know, younger generations secure more and more purchasing power, who have grown up in this completely online ecosystem of shopping, it's going to be very interesting to see the trends that come from this. I actually want to follow up with one of the things Ashley mentioned, because you said how one of your early setbacks was you were planning on going to trading shows and all of these big events with your products that all didn't happen, of course, because of COVID. I'm thinking about how what as the kind of in the later stages of the pandemic here and things start to come back, do you think there'll be, for instance, any big virtual events for worlds like skincare, or were there any trade shows that attempted to do something online that you were able to participate in? What did the world kind of look like when your world in particular, when it went online? And do you think that industry is going to continue some of the trends that it started this year?
Yes, so I actually participated. BuzzFeed had a holiday shopping event for its employees. So I was able to participate in that. So what it looked like was they, took all your information. They took some of your images, and they set it up as you would see the different companies laid out in boxes, and you could kind of click to visit the company and then see what products they have. So the incentive, like businesses gave discounts so that employees would, be more incentive to shopping. Um, and this gave them a way to have their holiday shopping event, but virtually. So I tend to see a lot of events happening like that where businesses are still able to showcase their items through a virtual event. Right now, as things are opening up, there are more events that are live, and especially in New York City, there's some that are already scheduled for the fall, with COVID precautions. But I hope to participate in those so that I can actually start to get the brand out again.
And how do you come across these events, and how do you register for them? Is it just going to a site and putting your information in,
Yeah,
or?
so I think I'm always researching different events. You can look on Eventbrite, you can talk to your friends. I think like once you start to have a business, you start to talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs, and everybody is so resourceful and helpful, and telling each other when events are, like, hey, there's an event for skincare products, you should really do this. And then I'd find out about it and I'd apply. A lot of times on Instagram, you see advertisements for different events too. So really, you just have to get out there and look. And then also, my friends and family are always sending me information that they come across too. And then once you start to participate in these events, you meet other people there, you network, and then, they just keep coming. So hopefully now, since things are, getting back to normal, there will be more events that I could participate in, and then, keep going from there.
Very good. And then, Henry, a question I had for you is, Locktree is very interesting because it is a very wide storefront. You're selling a wide variety of different focuses with this very cool sustainability theme. So I wonder, because you're a storefront with these wide variety of different products, you're going up against Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world. And even though every e-commerce site is going up against Amazon in its own way, I think your company is a little bit more of a direct competitor because of it's less focused in its products. So what are some tactics that you use to get people to basically pry them away for 5 minutes and get them onto your website, as opposed to just continuing to buy everything off of Amazon?
Yeah, I actually, it's less of a problem than I think most people would realize. A lot of the brands that I sell don't want to work with Amazon. Amazon's value proposition for many companies is volume, and they take margin, right? So you might, they might offer to sell 100,000 of your units, but they're going to take a much greater share of that pie. And for a lot of small companies, they can't even begin to operate like that, right? They're trying to grow their business, and like that to sell wholesale in that way would crush them. So they don't really want to, there's an opportunity there with a lot of the brands I work with are niche brands anyway. And so, I'm not buying hundreds of thousands of units of one product at a time. I think the other piece is when, brands want to stand out and there's a story to tell. And I think that's really important. And when Amazon does a lot of things brilliantly, they really do. But it's meant to be sort of an efficient, mindless machine, right? Where you need something, like you want batteries and you want like this battery right now, and you can get that in like 3 clicks and it's on its way. And I think people that are interested in sustainability, and I would say, similar to maybe, and I'm going out on a limb, but maybe similar to skincare and things like this, they're interested in learning a bit more and digging a bit deeper before they make a purchase. And to that end, they're willing to spend the time. They want to read about the products. They want to understand the impact that product's going to make, and so on. And then at the same time, they might want to browse similar products. And I think that one of the things I try and do at Lochtree is that the standard is sustainability. So you're not going to have, an eco-friendly product here and then something that is the complete opposite, which you might find on Amazon, right? Everything on my store meets that model, if that makes sense. And so that's who, those are the sort of consumers I'm looking to, is the ones that want to spend a bit more time, they're a bit more thoughtful, but we also have to support that. And as a result, I have to build my site around product information, around storytelling, and so on. And I can't just try and make it that, efficient sell machine. There has to be more there. And they have to, obviously all of us know who Jeff Bezos is, and we kind of put a bit of a face to Amazon, but consumers want to feel like they know who they're buying from in a way. And I've had a lot of kind of funny experiences where when I first started and I was packaging things up and I was like handwriting notes to every single, purchase that, like, thank you so much. And like literally like a almost too detailed postcard, like, thank you for shopping with us. This is a great product. You're going to love it for these reasons, so on and so forth. And it's amazing how some of that feedback has come back to me. I'm working with a brand now who, they came to my site, they purchased something, they loved the letter. They then like got back in contact with somebody else, and then it like bounced around a few times and then came back to me. And it all because I'd like taken the time to like write a letter. And you're not, I doubt very much you're going to open your package from Amazon and find that, Jeff Bezos wrote you a letter. And so I think those touch points are really, really important. And as a consumer, when you get something in the mail and it's personal and it's what you want, and it arrives in a timely fashion and it's not broken, it's this and this and this, but then there's a personal touch and you're like, wow, that came from somebody real, that came from a person in the world, and they're trying to make a difference. That's important. And then that's where you build, customer loyalty. That's where they tell their friends, and that's where they come back.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting to hear how all of that works together, and how people like just view Amazon, and definitely really cool with that personal touch of the letter. So
we have to do it differently, right? It can't there has to be, you can play in the space, but like what makes you special?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to just keep pushing out what makes you unique. And I think I have a question about that in just a bit. But one more thing I want to ask is, so there's billions upon trillions of websites out there on the World Wide Web. Each of your individual URLs are just a drop in this massive ocean. So it's already been mentioned a little bit about social media, but how do each of you advertise yourselves to the whole world and make sure that people are ending up on your websites and buying your products?
Yeah, basically it's right now for me, it's Instagram and just me being my own PR person and writing to everybody and just to get my brand out there. Um, Facebook and Instagram have great ways you could share ads. So you could pay for ad space and get your brand out there that way. I've done like giveaway contests where people will participate in that and then they get some natural ash, as a gift. And then they tell their friends, they tell their family. A great way was the holidays. A lot of people bought gifts for, their loved ones, and then they liked it, and then they came back and purchased also. So I think just for advertising for me has been through social media and then word of mouth. And then also I did do like one event before COVID happened where I got to meet a few people. And then from there, I've had consistent customers and also they've referred to other people. So that's how I've been doing advertising. I do plan to, as I grow, I definitely want to grow within marketing and maybe, reach out to more news outlets or talk shows and things like that. Even newspaper ads, which people I don't feel like don't use as much anymore. But yeah, so I'm still kind of learning and seeing what other ways I can advertise as well.
Thank you.
So I think, for me, one of the things I'd like to, mention first is I think that one of the things that we're really guilty of as Americans, and I always do this because I'm a mutt, is you'll see showcases of like, oh, I started this company and it blew up overnight, and I did this and this and this, and like now I'm like, a wild success, and I'm on the cover of this magazine and so on. And that's just not really reality. Like, true, people do get struck by lightning, and that happens. But like, at the same time though, if that's your plan for a business, like you're going to be disappointed. And I think that for me, it's important to first have kind of like a timeline of like, what is your goal here? And if you're trying to grow your company quickly to set to flip, and cash out, then that's a thing, right? Like people do that, and that's a timeline. But then you have to move very quickly to do that, and you have to sort of have the resources and advertise and grow around that. Whereas if you're trying to build something different and maybe something for the long term, then you approach it slightly differently. And for me, what I'm interested in doing with Lochtree is building a durable brand that's around for the long term. If I'm still doing this when I'm 70 or 80, then it's been a real success. So when you put that marker out there of like, here's what I'm trying to do, and here's how long I'm going to give it in a way, then it sort of changes the game a little bit. And so to come back to advertising, one of the things that I've really focused heavily on is SEO. So thinking about, search engine optimization, what are people searching for? So I love paid advertising. It's fantastic. It can really generate a tremendous amount of revenue once you get that machine going. But at the same time though, it is a bit of an addiction where, you put money in, you get money out, but the moment you turn it off, your sales go away because that was your only channel that you developed. Whereas I think with things like SEO, it's a much longer play. You have to put the time in, you have to create the content, it has to be valuable. But then once you're there, it's mega. And, for example, I wrote an article a few months ago because I had a new product coming on board, which was a zero waste shampoo. It's just shampoo bars without bottles. And I wrote an article and I discussed how many shampoo bottles we throw away in America every year. And I answered that question. And inadvertently, I am now the -- Google search response for how many shampoo bottles do we throw away every year. And that answering that question delivers a lot of traffic to my site, every month. And so the way I approached it is, how can I be useful to people? And so that's one thing I answered, like, what other questions do people have out there? And if I can do that and just do that over time, if each one of those is delivering me 100 visits a month or whatever, then we can start to do that math backwards. So I guess I would, to answer your question in a very, very long-winded way, I think the first thing you have to think about is what is your timeline, and then from there, what are the channels that make sense. So that's kind of how I've thought about it.
Thank you. Now, coming right out of the gate, for many of us, it's starting up a new enterprise is a very tough challenge, and it requires a lot of time. And for Ashley, I want to ask, you also work as a nurse, and for many people out there who have this idea in their head and thinking like, okay, well, like I want to do this, but I don't know how, if I can manage to like take this idea to the level I want it to be while also like focusing on the job that I'm working right now. What are some of the techniques and ways that you've developed over the last year on balancing your time as a nurse, especially in a time during the middle of the pandemic, while also fulfilling orders, taking some awesome new pictures for Instagram? How do you manage all that?
Yes, I think just, when anyone starts a business, usually that's what they want to do full time.
Mhm.
And for me, long term, natural ash is what I want to do full time. But, I also have a career as a nurse that I love and I enjoy. So luckily, I only work about 3 days a week. So I'm not at work Monday through Friday. My schedule's a little different. It's more flexible. It includes both weekends and weekdays. So I actually have a lot of time for natural ash. Um, the days that I work, after work, I'll come home and I might, make a batch for some orders or package some orders. Do things that aren't necessarily on the computer because I've been on the computer all day at my job and I'm tired. So that's one way I fit in, natural ash. And then also on my days off, like today, I take advantage of opportunities like the Zoom meeting or, admin things like bookkeeping, things that require more, of me to use a computer screen and just more thinking. So I really try to tell myself, every day you're going to do something for your brand. And the days that you work, you might not be able to do as much, but you're still going to do something. And I think that, having a career and then starting a business is a challenge because you have your business, you have your career, you have your family, you have your friends, you still want to have a social life. So I'm the type of person that's very organized and I literally have a calendar for everything. So that helps me. But I think, as people start out, they have to just figure out what works for them. And once you figure out what works for you, things will come easy because these are things that you want to do. Your passion is your business. You know, your passion may or not be your job, but at the end of the day, you still have to, try to fund your business. So I think it's just important to find a balance between the two. And that's what I try to do every day. And it's a challenge every day. And some days I wish I did more, but then, the next day you make up for it.
That's great. Yeah. Trying to find that balance, I feel, is always one of the hardest challenge when I talk to people starting their own business. So that's really awesome. I
Yeah,
have
sorry.
one.
And you just have to you have to be patient also
Mm,
because it's, sometimes and, sometimes back to when Henry said it doesn't happen overnight. You might see things, in the media and it's like, wow, this person's business like kicked off in a week, but they don't sometimes show you the hard days and the challenges that they have, because, on Instagram, you don't always see the bad with the good. So just as long as, you stay focused and you just, number one thing is just do what works for you.
definitely, there's absolutely a survivorship bias. In the I guess the entrepreneurship media of constantly hearing stories about how someone came up with this idea and now they're a multimillionaire, and it really tends to cut out the rough days that it took to get there, or even for the people who are being as successful but not that successful. So yeah, patience is very much a key. I have one more question for both of you. So if you have a question, if you're one of the listeners and you want Ashley or Henry to answer, you can go ahead and put in the chat. But my last question is, both of your companies have these really amazing social rules in terms of thinking about sustainability, or very natural ingredients that are cruelty-free. So I want to ask both of you what role you think social entrepreneurship plays in today's economy and going forward. I feel like growing up, I really didn't notice or think about, and companies really didn't seem to care about like the greater impact they had on the world. Whereas today I find, especially when I was at IDEA at Northeastern, so many of the entrepreneurs and inventors coming in had these motives behind what they were doing, whether that was being eco-friendly or helping to solve hunger or any of these massive societal issues and helping to play a small role. So as two companies doing your part in that, I would love to ask again, what role do you see social entrepreneurs playing in the economy?
I mean, I'll jump in on it. I think that it's interesting. I look a lot at the millennial generation and what's, and the shifts they're causing. And so what do they call me? Like, I'm a geriatric millennial. I was like, I'm an old millennial, I guess. But like, I grew up with things about like holes in the ozone layer and like the Amazon rainforest being cut down. Like, I grew up with that drumbeat like constantly, like it was always around us. And I think as a result of that, you're seeing this group, this demographic starting businesses and starting to purchase and starting families and things like that. And as a result, they have just different values than some of the previous generations, just because of what we've been exposed to growing up. And I think that's, in many ways why there's more of it. And I mean, I obviously, I believe it's essential, but I think that I believe that very much that it doesn't have to be a sacrifice in many ways. And I think that you can do well by, while doing good in a way. And, we can start a business and we can provide and we can take care of our families, or we can do this and this and this while doing good in the world. And I think that is, those are not, those two concepts are not opposed to one another. And I think if you kind of start off with that viewpoint, like you really see that it does come through. And there's obviously, there's some brilliant examples out there of companies that are doing that. Patagonia is obviously one that really comes to mind. They make brilliant products and they make a big impact, and they also sway the conversation around sustainability, around taking care of our environment with their business. So that's kind of how I view it.
Ashley?
Yes, I think it's very important. I think it gives, entrepreneurs a way to get a product out there, but then also, maybe help a social issue that's important to them. And for me, I'm an oncology nurse, so I'm very passionate about, trying to prevent anybody from absorbing chemicals in their skin. So that's why I created Natural Ash. So, it's a way to educate people and to get them, familiar with social issues that we do have today. And again, I think it's, similar to what Henry just said, you can have a successful company, but then you can also give back at the same time. And for me as a nurse, every time at work, I educate and I advocate, and I really advocate for patients. So in the same way with my brand, I want to educate healthcare. I want to educate awareness to your health and making sure that everybody's taking care of themselves. And a way of that is to look at what you're actually putting into your body. And just in general with the beauty industry, I think many companies are trying to change, how much waste is produced and to think about their packaging and to try to make plastic-free packaging. And those are all things I consider within Natural Ash as well. So I think our generation definitely pays attention to what they're buying and who they're buying from. And they do love to hear that story and know that their money is going to a good cause. And know if, they're purchasing from a company such as Tom's, that another pair of shoes is going to go to someone else in need. So I think your money goes a longer way when you're working with a company that has social issues, underneath their scope that's important to them.
Yep. Great. So we have a couple questions. The first one is Sean. How are some of the what are some of the ways that you can scale your business to increase healthy growth? Thinking about starting small, you have a few sales, you're seeing where it could go. What are some of the next steps you found to take things to the next level after that?
I think
For
for me,
I guess
sorry,
it's,
no, go ahead.
you want to go?
No. You'll say it better and more eloquently.
No, I was gonna say for me, it's as simple as look at what my customers are buying and produce more of that product. So another thing with scaling is that you want to increase growth, but you might not want to actually spend more money to increase that growth. So say if I sell, way more lavender shea butter than I do vanilla, then I'll start producing more lavender to meet those sales. So that's what I do, at least right now, because sometimes when you think of scaling, again, it's to grow, but not essentially to make your costs higher.
I think, for me, it can be a bit of a math equation where you have, with an e-commerce site, you have all these different channels that you're looking at of where traffic's coming. Is it coming from, social, and social can break down to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, like it can come from all of these things. And that's just in one little channel. Then you have like organic traffic and you have, email and so on. And I think it's important for one to test everything, but not go full in on any one thing right away, and identify what works for you. So there are some things that I'm very interested in, and I maybe keep an eye on the fire, if you would, but I know that, maybe it's not right for me right now, or, it's something I'm going to revisit in the future, but hey, this channel or this thing is working for me quite well. So let's keep doing that. Let's keep keep optimizing that and make that more efficient. And then let's see what else we can build off of that. And so that's kind of how I've thought about it. It's just almost, I think you have all these marketing opportunities and they've certainly worked for other brands and things like that. And you just have to see what fits yours. And, don't be, test. And then I would never say eliminate, just set aside and say like, okay, that might not be right for me right now. I'm going to put that aside for 6 months and I'll revisit it again and check on that again. But now I at least know. So, for example, like TikTok is something that's become very popular and people are talking about it. And I'm interested in it. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it. I don't necessarily have the bandwidth to go in on it right now and do it well, but I'm at least like trying to educate myself on the side about it and how we do that. And I think that you have to start to become quite pedantic about like I can do this, this works well, doing more of that, and then so on.
David is asking what every social media marketing person is asking right now. I was wondering if you ever consider TikTok as a potential distribution channel for your companies.
I have a TikTok for mine, and I think I got it like a few months ago. At first I thought TikTok was just like for dances, and I guess I'm aging myself, but once I started to go on it, I was like, oh, this is actually very cool. You can learn a lot on the app. So I actually started using it. I do TikToks on like my shipping, how I create, letters and notes for the customers, how I make the body butter, everything. And it's pretty cool because you get a different audience, and then also people get to see it and watch it, and it can be a lot of fun. So I definitely use TikTok, and I will continue to.
Henry, what's your TikTok account?
So I have one, but I don't use it currently. And just, it's a similar thing. Like I appreciate the value. For me, it's just balancing irons in the fire and what, I would like to certainly do more of it. I think some of it's also, I think about growth. Growth isn't linear. It's, in my opinion, it's much more stepped. And what are the things I can do today that are going to help me go to the next level? And then at that next level, what options open up? Hello? So maybe that next level, I have greater capability of having another team member join me and be like, okay, team member, you do TikTok. You're not a geriatric millennial like I am. Like, go for it, or whatever that might be. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Well, you're both ahead of me because I don't even have an account yet. So, Neri wants to know, what are your processes in finding suppliers for your products?
So for me, since I create all the products, I source my materials, and that's anything from the labels that I use to the actual body butter and lip balm materials. Right now, I source through a local business right here in Harlem, and I purchase a lot of the butters and oils from them. And then as far as packaging goes for my glass jars, I work with a family run business. So I try to work with, as many small businesses as I can, because you get that, you make a connection. So for instance, for my glass jars, if anything goes wrong, somebody will personally email me that I can actually speak to, which is nice because then I'm not stressed out if they don't have any because I know I can speak to somebody. So, again, I try to work with, companies that I can build a relationship with. When I buy my shea butter, I know where it comes from. I know who I'm dealing with. It's the same person every time. So, I built a relationship with them. And so for me, that's important when finding suppliers for my products.
So my process is a little bit different, but some of it is, I started off thinking about, verticals and horizontals and different categories of products that one might be interested in. And then from there, it's speaking to consumers, what are they looking for, pieces that are interested in them. And then I also look for things that, have a story, have a really interesting background, something that we can work with. And that's kind of my process. I also speak to I spend a lot of time talking to people in the space, both whether it's really consumers or, other people that really live and breathe sort of sustainability and zero waste and what they're interested in, and then kind of go from there.
All right. Well, we don't have any more questions and we are nearing the end of the hour. So I think that's going to be it. If anyone has any more questions or would just like to reach out to either of you after this, where can they go?
So you can email me. My email is ashley@naturalashbody.com or Instagram @naturalashbody. I'd love to help. And, if you have any questions about how to start a business from, the paperwork to, trying to secure the name and the LLC, anything, I've pretty much, I've done everything up to this point. And I think it's very important, to help others who are at that same starting point. So if you have any questions, I'd love to help. And yeah, I'm always available.
Yeah, similarly, I would say that if I'm more than happy to help anyone who's interested. I think when one dives into this, people, you always get help from others, and to be able to pay that back and help the next person along is something that's very important to me. And of course, the Northeastern community has been fantastic. So more than happy to chat with anybody. You can reach me at henry@lochtree.com, or my Instagram is @Lochtree, and I'll put it in the chat as well. That's very, very clever, actually. So yeah, but happy to discuss, e-commerce and all those, sort of steps and bumps along the way, and how you sort of get going with it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sitting here with me over Zoom and answering all of the questions. And I especially want to thank everyone who was here today to listen. And last but certainly not least, Bernice at the Office of Alumni Relations for putting this all together. Thank you so much, everyone. Bernice, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add at the end.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess that wraps up our discussion for today. So yeah, thank you everyone in the audience for attending, and especially thank you to Jake, Ashley, and Henry for all this great insight. We definitely got a lot to take away from the conversation. So thank you everyone for attending, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was great. Thank you so much. It was fun to sit down and talk about all this.
Have a good day, everyone.